Hello everyone. Thanks for joining me for my weekly chat with a college prep guru. This week I am chatting with scholarship expert Jocelyn Paonita, founder of the Scholarship System. Welcome, Jocelyn.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, of course, me too. I know this is a huge topic, especially right now. It's scholarship season. And so, I think we have pretty similar backstories. So why don't you share with folks what your story is, how you got into this. I think that might be helpful and also inspiring.
Yeah, sure. It's always funny when people ask, how did I get into this? Because it was kind of an accident from my own experience, which I think that you could probably relate to. Knowing your story, it's kind of like, when you go through this, you figure out how painful it can be. And so once you figure it out, you just want to share it with the world, right? This started off my junior year in high school when I was applying to tons of scholarships. And before I knew it, I was not hearing back from anything. I was getting so frustrated, ready to quit. And then by my senior year, I started kind of tweaking my strategy a little bit and finally won. Actually, it was just a $500 scholarship was my first one. But then I realized that my junior year in high school, I was pretty much applying to all these scams, and I had to kind of fine tune my own process to figure out, okay, which ones are worth my time, which ones aren't. And that's when I started actually seeing some of the wins come in. And so I kept doing that. I kept applying throughout college. And before I knew it, I was able to graduate completely debt free, getting over six figures in scholarships. And that was supposed to be the end of my story. I got my college covered and I went on my merry way into corporate finance. But a lot of my friends and family members were reaching out to me saying, we need money. How did you do that? How can can you tell me what to do? And I would tell them. And before I knew it, I sounded like a broken record. And that's when I realized this is a system. It's a replicable process. It's steps to take, that people just need to implement. And if they do, then they can do this. And so, I also saw this huge debt crisis coming up with student loan debt. And if I can make any kind of impact in that, then I want to. And so that's where the scholarship system came about.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that you use the word system because it's the same thing that we talk about with the families we work with, is that it is a system. It's a step-by-step process. And if you follow it, then you will have all of your ducks in a row and you'll be ready. So
Yep.
what do you think is really the biggest lesson that you learned through that experience?
I think honestly, it's what we just mentioned about the fact that it is a system. It's a process. It's a step-by-step, systematic process to follow. And it's one of those things where once you figure out what needs to be done, you get those materials ready, you get your credentials in line. It's amazing how it'll take more time up front, of course, but it's amazing at how much the time can decrease as you go, while increasing your chances of winning because you can figure out, okay, which stories should I be telling? Which experiences can I pull from? Which essay worked? Which didn't? And so really creating this own little system for securing money for college, that is, in my opinion, the biggest thing I've learned for myself, but even for my students, the families that I work with, those that are sitting down, creating, following these steps, those are the ones that are seeing the return. And so I think that's the big thing that I've learned is that it really is. It's not luck of the draw. It's not, casting a wide net and hoping that it catches something. It's figuring out that system.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think something that often gets overlooked too is it takes time and it takes work. I mean, it is a system, but you have to put the work into it. And the work on the front end will pay off on the back end. And so I think getting that message out there is so important that you have to look at it as a job almost. Applying for scholarships is a job and it can potentially make you a lot of money.
Yeah, I think I figured out. I don't remember what my hourly rate was, but I will tell you right now, I have not made it since then. Like
Yeah.
the scholarship hourly rate is insane. It's the best paying job that you could ever have.
Oh my gosh.
If you figure it out.
Yeah, so true. So, speaking of scholarships and, we have these amazing stories and we're able to win all of these scholarships, but I think a lot of parents and even students out there kind of feel like we're outliers. And so what do you think? Do you think that really anyone can do this, or is it just a select few?
Sure. So I think that this, it's kind of crazy. A lot of students like you and I that were able to secure this money. I don't know about your test scores. My SAT score was actually, I think nowadays it's below average. I was by no means near a merit scholar or anything like that. And I was the furthest thing from an athlete, I promise you. But I think the biggest thing is doing the work. So a lot of everyone wants scholarships, but a small number of people truly do the work. Just like what you mentioned, while it is a system, while there's steps to follow, they have to be implemented. You have to submit the application on time in order to even be considered. We offer our own scholarship for members and also for non-members. And this is crazy to me. We had thousands of shares of this scholarship, and one of the applications only got 7 submissions. 7 submissions, which is crazy. The chances of winning, and we gave out 2 scholarships, so 2 out of the 7 received an award.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's just, I think a lot of parents think it's this, they were told, no, that's a myth that there's tons of scholarships out there that don't even receive applications, or, that's a myth that very few students apply to some of them. But I've seen it firsthand, but besides when I was winning scholarships myself, but I just saw it this past month when selecting a winner as well. I mean, so in my opinion, can average students get this money? Absolutely, if they're willing to just do the work and follow these steps.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'll ask you your opinion on sweepstakes here in a minute. But, we saw the same thing firsthand. My mom was serving on local scholarship boards and seen scholarships go completely unawarded. They would have a $500 scholarship for a girl and a $500 scholarship for a boy, and no boys would apply. And so that scholarship didn't get awarded. And it really is unbelievable the amount of scholarships that are out there available to students and that have small applicant pools. I think that students don't realize, and they give up before they should. They think that, I'm not good enough to get a scholarship, so I'm not even going to apply, when they could be 1 out of 7 or 2 out of 7, apparently. It's unbelievable. And so, speaking of that, we're a big fan of going after those local scholarships, those smaller, more niche scholarships where you do have better odds. But I know everyone has a different opinion as far as like what types of scholarships students should be applying for. And so what's your opinion on those sweepstakes scholarships that are out there?
So when I was saying that my junior year in high school, I was applying to I guess I shouldn't call them scams. That's a tough word, but they're pretty close to it. I mean, these sweepstakes scholarships where you just put your name in a hat and you'll magically win $10,000 for college. In my opinion, I agree completely with everything you said about local scholarships, smaller dollars. Those are less competitive. They're low-hanging fruit. Yes, they require an essay, but you actually have a chance of winning them. I have yet to ever meet anyone that has won a sweepstakes scholarship. I mean, we know what they're doing. They're collecting emails and they're marketing to these people. Yeah. So, and I've had some parents say, well, someone has to win them, and sure, that's fine. But if you spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes on each of those, and you submit 30 of them, if you put that same time into a solid essay that could be reused for true competitive, true legitimate scholarships, then your rate of return would be so much greater. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the sweepstake ones.
Couldn't agree more. So, speaking of, talking to parents and they sometimes do have time to help their students. And I know a lot of times they can work as a team, make this more of a team effort to find these scholarships and apply for them and make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And so what's your advice for parents? What can they do to help their students with this?
Yeah, I think, being involved in the process, parents, in my opinion, should absolutely not be doing the applications, but enabling their child, their student, to do this process can make such a huge impact on their success with paying for college. So the families that we're seeing have the greatest success. They do what we suggest we call scholarship Saturdays or scholarship Sundays, where they choose, just a couple hours a week, and that's the designated time to submit these applications. And sometimes they even make snacks and, they make fun of it. But the nice thing about that is, and I'm sure parents could relate to this, if you just say in general, hey, you need to be doing scholarship applications, just constantly bringing it up, Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever day, it can start to feel a little naggy, and, it's already hard to raise a teenager as it is. So if instead you have this set amount of time on a set day for your child, and they know when it's going to be, you don't have to nag them throughout the week. You have that set time on Saturday or Sunday, no questions asked. So I think it also alleviates some of the stress around the process when you have that designated time. But also just simply getting them to sit down consistently can increase their chances of success greatly, just because they're actually putting the time into the process.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I know I spoke to a mom recently who had heard of getting together a scholarship group where they would do something similar like that. Like every Saturday they would have a group of students come together and maybe their parents, and everyone had to bring at least 2 scholarship opportunities, and so using it as a way also to find the scholarships and as a group compile a list that their students could apply for. So I thought that was a really cool spin on it. Make it fun. It doesn't have to be this chore.
I agree. And I always love, we'll have some students where them and a friend will join at the same time. And I always suggest that's an accountability buddy as well. It's not just the parents, but other people. I love that.
Yes,
I love it.
Accountability is definitely key. We're big advocates of that. So as you've gone through this process and you've worked with students, not only your personal experience, but your experience, with the scholarship system, what do you think is the most overlooked part of the scholarship process?
So it's funny with parents. I think a lot of the assumption with the scholarship process is if we can just find legitimate scholarships, the application's a piece of cake. They're always worried about finding them. And we talk a lot about them. The first step 3 out of the 6 steps is solely focused on where to find these scholarships. But the thing is, a lot of students, in my opinion, and we just chose winners. We had to go through dozens and dozens of applications. So one of them had 7 applications. One of them had more. But the thing, in my opinion, is there's so much focus on finding them that when they actually find them, they just knock out the application, submit it. And unfortunately, sometimes that leads to just being eliminated because of little mistakes. So that said, just in general, I think they overlook the actual application. They underassume the amount of effort that will be needed. But the big thing that I have seen comes down to scholarship essays. So, I hated writing essays. I hated writing any essays until I figured out, a set process to follow. And I've since used that set process to create our course, to create all of our materials. And really, it comes down to what is the structure of an essay. I can't tell you if students can make sure that they have a solid structure, a good flow to an essay, they will be ahead of at least half of the applicants, because there are so many where it almost seems like they're throwing out ideas and they're formulating it as they start writing. And then at the end, they kind of try to wrap it up back to the essay prompt, which first off, it's a great thing that they're even applying, but I would love for their efforts to be, more effective. So that said, if you're reading an essay, whether you're a parent and you're reviewing it or if you're a student and you're writing it, you should be able to pick out, okay, what's this essay prompt? What am I answering? Where's the beginning? What are my main points? And where's the end? And if you can't designate those, then you might want to go back and reassess the structure of it. So, and again, I hated writing essays. So this doesn't mean that you have to be amazing at writing essays, but it just means that you truly want to try to build that structure in there, because that alone, it makes our lives so much easier as graders. The selection committees, it makes it easier to follow, and it's easier for you to sell yourself that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of times they forget to go back to the basics. Like you said, they need to keep in mind that the people reading these essays are maybe reading dozens or hundreds or thousands of essays, and you need to make it easy on them to read it and understand what you're trying to say and really get a sense of who you are rather than being distracted by, well, where are they going with this, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a great tip. So to wrap things up, do you have any final tip or piece of advice that you want to share for families on the college-bound journey?
Sure. I think another thing that a lot of people worry about with scholarships is, maybe my student's they don't have a perfect GPA, or they're not a superstar athlete, or they're not president of every club. And the thing that we talk about, so you have, this amazing planner that helps them pre-plan their college years so that doesn't become them, it sets up their involvements. But a lot of times I get students that are a little later in the process, maybe a junior or a senior, and they don't feel like they have anything to sell on their scholarship application. But the one thing I can suggest is students underestimate their value so much. A lot of times I'll talk to a student, I'll say, well, what are you involved in? What have you done? What can you talk about? And they'll be like, I don't know, and then mom will come in or dad will come in and they'll start tooting their kid's horn. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's this huge list of stuff we have to work with. So helping students figure out what they can sell, that's step 4. We focus solely on that, So it's not just, okay, what can you get involved in, but what have you done that we can sell? And with that, you want to keep in mind, scholarship committees want to invest. I mean, this is pretty much an investment, right? They want to give money to students that they know will succeed in college and beyond. And when you're pulling from your previous experiences, no matter how small, you'd be shocked. I mean, whether it's helping an elderly neighbor or babysitting, something simple, when you pull from those experiences, show where that you learned skills that will help you succeed in the future. And that way you don't have to be present of everything. So you can just pick a few good examples and use those.
Yeah, definitely. I think students often get stuck thinking, oh, I have to be like this perfect, well-rounded student who's done everything, and I'm an athlete and I have great grades and great test score. You don't have to fit into this perfect box, and there's so many unique things that students are involved in that they don't realize are valuable to the scholarship or the college application. It's so cliche, but they really are looking to find out who you are and what you've done. It doesn't have to be a specific, type of student or type of involvement. It's just you, And I think that's really simple, but it often gets overlooked.
I agree.
Yeah. So thank you again, Jocelyn. We really appreciate it. You are one of the biggest gurus when it comes to finding scholarships and applying for scholarships, and so we really appreciate you being here to share your advice with our families. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. See ya.